Hi, my name is Bruce Fenton. I want to thank you very much for taking your valuable time to learn about employment opportunities at Watchdog Capital. So in this video, I'll go through what the firm is about and what our mission is. Watchdog Capital is an SEC registered broker-dealer and a FINRA member. Essentially, we're trying to build the firm of the future because we believe that there is a lot of exciting changes in the securities industry. We look at securities from a very 40,000 foot big picture view, going back to the creation of the first security, the Dutch East India Company, over 400 years ago. Basically, our core belief is that the invention of securities and this ability for people to share risk and return is one of the most profound and important economic inventions in history. And if you can make securities work better, you can make the world work better. So that's what our mission is in trying to build the firm of the future. There are a few core key values that we have: freedom, compliance, and innovation. So the freedom part of it comes from what securities themselves are. At their core, a core value of the securities industry, in our belief, should be freedom and free markets. The freedom for people to voluntarily interact with who they want and share risk and return in a way that they want. So as a firm, we want to foster that as much as possible within the regulatory system that is allowed and make it as easy as possible for people to issue and invest in securities. This value of freedom and economic freedom and free markets and Austrian economics all also ties in to the cryptocurrency space and values that are important in the cryptocurrency space, like the Cypherpunk Manifesto, which talks a lot about freedom, and it talks about exactly this type of voluntary interaction, which is inherent in the securities industry. The ability for people to voluntarily interact with who they want, voluntarily trade with who they want, and in the case of the Cypherpunk Manifesto, to control the information that they want and have privacy over what they want and be able to share what they want. These are all core values that are all related to freedom and sound economic principles and the type of technology and the type of things that we want to explore and pursue as a firm. Compliance is a key part. There's nothing that can destroy a company in this industry quicker than compliance violations. So compliance is very key. We're obviously very heavily regulated, and we think that having a culture of compliance is absolutely crucial to surviving and thriving and doing well in this space. If you have clean compliance and you follow all the rules, you can deal with almost any other problem. You can change who you pursue as customers. You can change your marketing style. You can even change the product lines that you pursue. But compliance is very, very key. So that's a core value that we have. Innovation is also a core value. Innovation, just because we are in a heavily regulated and compliance-focused industry, doesn't mean that we can't innovate. And we think that there's a lot of exciting innovation to be done in compliance with existing rules that makes it easier for securities to move and operate and makes it so that securities can be improved upon. Watchdog is owned by Chainstone Labs, which is owned by myself, my wife, Carol Ann Fenton, and Medici Ventures, which is a venture firm that is owned by a publicly traded company. Chainstone also owns Atlantic Financial, which is an RIA, and owns the Satoshi Roundtable event, which I'll talk about in a second. Securities is sort of in our organizational DNA. Many of us have been working in the space for quite some time. A lot of us have had long careers. I've been in the space for a very long time, and we've been fortunate enough to do a lot of interesting things, ranging from handling small clients all the way up to very, very large customers and large deals. We host this Satoshi Roundtable event. It's now in its 7th year, and it is probably one of the most well-respected crypto events. We've had a who's who of people like, whether it's celebrities like William Shatner and Ron Paul, to industry who's who, CEOs, developers, founders, protocol founders, open source devs, academics, OG investors, and so on. We've been really proud of who we've brought together consistently. And most importantly, we've gotten really good connections. And we've learned a lot from this. So the learning and the connections that we've had has helped us inform our investment decisions, and make better investment decisions, and make better decisions about where the industry is going. The overall securities and wealth management industry is obviously large and very profitable. It's also going through important changes right now, particularly on two sides, the regulatory front and the technical front. So on the regulatory side, you see improvements such as the SEC changing the accredited investor definition or increasing the exemptions for exempt offerings like Reg CF, Reg D, and Reg A. And you see these similar changes going on globally in the EU and Europe and the Middle East. You see these types of improvements, which are making it easier for people to issue or invest in securities. On the technical side, you have some improvements as well. Not all bottlenecks are on the regulatory side. Some of it is technical. And overall improvements over the last 20 to 30 years with the internet, speed, overall fintech improvements have moved the industry along quite a bit. We have more recent things with work from home and some other improvements and, ongoing technical improvements. But the really big one is in the area of cryptocurrencies and distributed ledgers and Bitcoin. This has the potential to really change how money works and also how the ledgers work for the settlement of public securities, and also have the potential to really affect how secondary markets work. So it's a very, very big deal, and we think it's going to change the entire industry, and we want to build the firm of the future that is at the cutting edge of these new changes. So to do that, we're looking at increasing our capabilities as much as possible. We want to have as many capabilities, as many selling agreements, as many permissions on our membership agreement, and as many joint ventures and alliances to help us and help our reps take advantage of the ever-changing world of securities, particularly with these new technology and regulatory changes that we're seeing as part of this revolution that we're part of. So to do that, we're looking at securities trading. We have some exciting things that haven't been announced yet in that front. Robo-advisors from a very rep-centric standpoint. We think there's room for rep-centric and rep-friendly robo-advisory. Securities tokens, I touched on. The tokenization of securities is something that's a big deal. The SEC chairman, Jay Clayton, mentioned that every security could ultimately be tokenized, and we agree with that. But it is still in its early stages. So there's only so much we can do until that industry matures with the various other participants, whether it's ATSs or exchanges or other major brokerage firms that are helping to further this along. But we do believe that this is going to be a huge area, and we've worked very, very hard to keep ahead of the curve and lay the groundwork for what we think is going to be an exciting and important area of global securities. Lastly, we're also working in investment banking, particularly for exempt offerings. There's been some exciting improvements with the increased of limits for Reg CF, Reg D, and Reg A. Certain offerings have increased, and so we want to be on the cutting edge of that as well. So if this sounds like something that is an overall area of interest for you and you'd like to proceed, the criteria for candidates, you have to have a very clean U4, clean compliance record, no legal problems or regulatory problems. We can discuss any, if you have any yes answers or anything, we can discuss those. But generally, we have very, very high standards, and most regulatory issues are going to be disqualifying. You have to have an understanding of U.S. securities law. Depending on which role you're applying for, this could be quite extensive. Certainly, registered Series 24 principals would have to have, very, very strong understandings of FINRA regulations like know your customer regulations, client suitability, communications with the public, these type of rules. And then SEC regulations, understanding how securities offerings are made, what is a security, what exemptions are and how exempt offerings work, these kind of things. And really anything else that would be relevant to your job depending what role you're applying for. Having an interest in Bitcoin and distributed ledger technology is huge. If you're already interested in it, that means that your job will definitely be interesting. If you're not an expert on it already, that's okay. It's something you can learn on and probably dive down the rabbit hole, so to speak, And I've seen many people become very interested in it. And I've also seen a lot of people who never need to work again, but they work very hard every day because for the right person, it's a very, very interesting space. It's not for everybody, but for the right person, it's a very endlessly fascinating industry. The last item that I mention is something that you see on almost every job description, but in our case, we really mean it. And that's the self-starter and entrepreneurial. This company is structured and it will work best for somebody who views themselves as their own profit center. If you have the ability to be a true self-starter and solve problems, whether your computer breaks or you need to find a vendor, or you need to find a solution or do something that you didn't anticipate in getting the task done, those are the people who will do best here. It's a very entrepreneurial space. We're a small company in a very chaotic and changing industry, and we don't have the time or ability to do lots of hand-holding and lots of day-to-day help with employees. It's more like big picture tasks and direction, and then you need to go and execute it. So if that sounds like it might be a fit for you, and the rest of the information about the firm sounds like something that you might want to pursue and go on to the next phases, you can certainly begin the process. It includes interviews, written testing, and video like this. And we can continue from there. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And no matter how our paths may cross in the future, thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit about Watchdog Capital and our hiring process. Thank you.